Good morning, Internet. It is Saturday, the 15th of August 2020, and I'll be doing a slow solve of the medium New York Times Sudoku. And by slow, I mean I'm just going to talk through every single one of my steps to explain how we can solve this puzzle. I've not tried this yet, so had a bit of a roadblock yesterday. I wasn't able to solve the medium with Snyder notations, so let's hope today's puzzle is a bit easier. So starting with the ones, what I do is I go through from 1 to 9, looking at the entire grid and see how the ones interact, how the twos interact, how the threes interact, and see if I can spot where the numbers are pushed into, basically, or what pencil markings I can do using the Snyder notation. And when I do pencil markings with Snyder notation, the purpose is to basically only notate 2 cells at a time where possible. So let's get started. So the first thing I spotted is these 3 ones, well, these 2 ones basically locks my 1 in this box into these 2 cells, well, on this column anyway. And since 8 has taken that cell and 1 has taken, 1 sees that cell, it means the 1 has to go there. And now the first thing I do is I look across, because I know I deduce this 1 using the kind of column deductions. So looking across, I can see another 1 locked into a single cell in the corner up there. And since I came from the side, I'm going to look down now again, and I can see 1 is now locked in a single cell. And now since I look down to see this 1, I'm going to look across again, and I can see there are 2 possible pencil markings of 1s that I can do, because these 2 1s locks all these cells, well, these 2 rows entirely, and I've got a single 1 on the column. So I'm now left with just 1 box that I haven't pencil marked in, but actually we can now resolve all the 1s, because these 2 1s lock the 2 rows, and I've got 1 up there, so that gives us another 1 which erases the pencil marking of 1 because it sees the cell, therefore it cannot be 1, and that gives me the final 1 basically. By the way, if anyone is interested in I guess even more basic tutorials of Sudokus, I'm happy to oblige as well, and just talk about the fundamental principles, because I know a few friends said to me they can't do Sudokus because they're not good with numbers, when in reality the numbers are just like patterns basically. Sudoku is purely a logic puzzle with no math involved, unless you play with like killer Sudoku. Math just doesn't come into it. It's just numbers are the most obviously recognizable shapes. We could have easily gone from A to I, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Yeah, that's A to I as 9 alternative shapes. But I'm waffling on now, so let's move on to 2s. So I can see a pencil markings of 2s there, because this 2 locks those 2 cells, and that sees that. So now I'm looking down, because I've just created a pointed pair. Even though I haven't actually put in a 2, I know that these 2 2s locks the 2 in this column, therefore there can't be any more 2s down here. So I'm looking down with this 2, and I can see the 3 possible locations, and based on the Snyder notations, we don't pencil mark in unless there are only 2 possibilities. So that's not rewarding. So what we do is we rewind, and but since that was the first kind of pair of 2s that we've seen, rewinding basically means we're back to square 1, and I'm now looking at this 2 coming across, locks the 2s in these 3 cells. Now there are 3 possibilities here, so I'm not going to pencil mark them in, but they created a pointed triple. The 2 has to be in this box on row 2, therefore there can't be any more 2s on the same row, and it actually eliminates the pencil marking there. And this is why I go through the grid like some people like to do box by box, but by sticking to number, it's easy for me to use. As soon as I spot the triple, I immediately am able to look over there and look across and see what new interaction it has, even though I can't actually do any pencil marking in just yet. So moving on, look at these two 2s, they interact, leaving me 3 possibilities, so I'm going to ignore that. And this 2 also, there are no interactions down there, so it leaves me 5 possible cells of where the 2 can be, so I'm going to ignore that as well. So now let's look at this one. Well, it locks that cell, giving me 2 pencil markings in, and that's all the interactions that we have with 2s. So we've got 2 sets of triples locked in, but we're kind of going to sort of bear them in mind, but we can't do anything with them yet. And I'm pretty sure we don't need to use them. And let's just move on to 3s. So 3s, I've got only a pair of 3s there. And since they're both lined up vertically in 2 boxes, it means there are no horizontal interactions between the 3. So I know I don't have to look sideways really. So I've got a pair of 3s locked in those cells up there. And I mean, I still look horizontally, but I know unless that single 3 in this row can actually lock any pencil markings in or final digit, I'm not going to get much out of them basically. Sorry about, just needed to blow my nose there. So 4s, I've got a pair of 4s here again on these in these 3 vertical boxes, but actually this 4 on its own, this is the scenario I mean where a single digit can actually give you a solution, and there's only one possible place the 4 can go. And what's interesting is it knocks out my pencil marking of a 2, and since Snyder notation are based on pairs of digits, based on 2 digits being pencil marked in within each box, I know that if I knock one out, then the other automatically has to be true, is the last possible candidate. So now I can fill in the 2, leaving me with a single cell in the entire box, and the only digit it can be is 8. So now what I sometimes do is jump ahead and actually look at the last digit I've pencil marked, or I've kind of notated to see what it does, and it actually gives me a pair of 8s over here because these 2 8s and that 8 interacting, and I can rewind back and look at the 4. Actually no, it was the 2, wasn't it? So if I look at the 2 now, I can see these 2 interact with that 2, so these rows are blocked out by the 2s, but I've also got a 2 here, so actually it gives me another 2. So I can actually do more of this 2 because these 2 now interacts. Because I came from the side, I'm now looking down, and I've got another set of 2s pencil marked in. So that's the dead end. So like a maze, I'm going to rewind back. There's nothing out this 2 does basically. So I'm going to come back to this 2 and then come back to the 4. Does this 4 do anything else? Well, I got it because of the vertical deduction. So I'm going to go across, and I can't see any other 4s. So that's another dead end. Rewind back, and that's all I do at the moment basically. So now I've got moments where I can actually step back a little bit and actually see, actually there's something else that the 8 does actually, because it also interacts with that 8, giving me another pair of 8s as pencil marking. And if I look down, there's nothing else going on, so there's nothing else happening with the 8. But if I now step back a little bit from the board, because I filled in quite a few numbers, it's worth seeing if there are kind of like new things that has occurred basically. And the first thing that I notice is I've now got triple left in this row. I've got 3 possible cells left, and that means there are 3 candidates left. So if I do a bit of mental, not math, but kind of like visualization, what numbers am I missing from here? Well, I've got 1, 2, I'm missing a 3, 4, 5, I'm missing a 6, and then missing a 7. So I'm basically missing 3, 6, and 7. So what I'll do is look for each one of these cells. I'll look up and down to see if I can spot any of the numbers. I can spot a 7 there, which means I'm missing a 3 and a 6. So that's now immediately a pair of 3 and 6s. Look up and down. I can't see any numbers. Well, let's look at the box as well. There are no 3, 6 or 7. So that's all 3 possibilities remaining. Similarly here, I've got 3, 6, and 7. So nothing I can do with this triple just yet. So let's move on. Going back to the pencil markings, I was doing 4s, so let's continue looking at the 4s on their own, because all their vertical interactions are over now. It's only horizontal possible, and I can't see anything else, so let's move on to 5s. So 5s, I've got a pair of 5s here interacting with this 5, essentially locking in these 2 rows and that column. So I've got a new 5. Now let's look up, because I came from across. So looking up, I can see another pair of 5s here. That's a dead end. I can't do anything else with the 5s. Although I say that, what I also tend to do is, if I got a pair of 5s, I would now look across and see if there are any other situations where the 5s are locked into the same 2 rows, because if they do, that actually gives us an additional possibility, basically, additional kind of pattern. But until I spot it, I'm not going to talk about it just yet. Let's rewind a little bit back. So that was the last 5 that we put in. There's nothing else I can do with it, so let's look at other 5 interactions. So these 2 5s interact in such a way that I have 3 possibilities left, so nothing I can do with it. Well, this 5 looks up, giving me 2 5s up here as well, but since they are in a kind of, not diagonal, but a nice move away from each other, they don't do any, they can't interact with the rest of the board in any meaningful way either. So let's rewind back. Let's look at this 5. That interacts with that 5 as well, but it gives me 3 possibilities as well, so I can't do anything with that. So now let's move on to 6s. 6, I've only got 2 6s, so they interact in this box here, leaving me with 3 possible 6s, so nothing I can do. They also interact in this box, but that cell is already taken, so, well, actually no, it's not the cell that I'm referring to, but either way, they interact in such a way that it leaves me 4 possibilities, so they don't actually do anything in conjunction with each other. What about on their own? If I look up and down, I've got 3 possibilities. Got 3 possibilities over here. With this 6, I've got 4 possibilities. Looking down, I've got 4 possibilities over here, so can't do any new pencil markings in. Let's move on to 7s. I've got these 2 7 interacting, giving me a pair of 7s, and that's all the interaction. So now that I've done a few, I'm going to speed up a little bit just so the video won't get super long. But suffice to say, there's not much else going on with the 7s. What about 8s? 8, 8, 8, 8. So I've got a pair of 8s here because of these 2. And let's move on to 9s. 9. So these 2 9s interact, giving me a pair of 9s there. These 2 9s interact, giving me another 9 there. So the new 9 looking down doesn't give me any new possibilities. So I think I've exhausted all the 9s. So now we've gone through, oh, my mouse is running low on battery. So let's plug that in. And so now what I like to do is step back a little bit and look for weak areas. And by weak areas, I'm talking about where there are only 2 or 3 candidates left on either a row, column, or box. I define box as a box of 9 cells. So I've already looked at this earlier. Although the board may have changed a little bit, so let's have a look again. So these are 3, 6 and 7. I can't see any pairs going on, so those are going to remain unresolvable at the moment. I've got another triple over here, so I'm left with 3, also 3, 6 and 7 actually. So maybe there's some sort of pattern with 3, 6 and 7 somewhere on the board, but right now I can't see any 7s or 6s, or I can see a 3 over here. So this is a 6 and 7, but I've got 3, 6 and 7 all possible in these 2 cells. So I basically have a triple that I can't resolve just yet. So what I can do is I can go back around the entire grid and just see if there are any new notations. Now, since I've actually done some solid numbers, confirmed some of the numbers, the board has actually changed by nature, and it may unlock some new pencil markings. So for example, if I look at these two twos, they give me a pair of twos up here, because these cells are now locked in, and it gives me a pattern. I've got 2s and 8s pencil marked in both these two cells, so it means if the 2 has to live in one of these two cells, the 8 has to live in one of these two cells. That means there are no other numbers that can go into these two cells, and essentially allows me to eliminate that 5. Oops, it allows me to eliminate that 5, and that means the only remaining candidate, 5, has to be correct, and I've got a 5 here, so that 5 eliminates another pencil marking, so now I've got another 5. So let's see, what do the 5s do? Well, these two 5s interact with that 5 over here, giving me another pair of notations. That 5 also interacts with that 5, giving me a pair of notations there. And let's rewind a little bit because both are dead ends now. So what about this 5? Well, this 5 doesn't do anything else because I've already done the horizontal interactions, and vertically I've already got all the 5s in these 3 boxes. So that's it. So by just simply doing the 2 candidates, I've unlocked 2 more 5s on the board, so that's quite fun. What I can do right now is step back a little bit because I've got another triple that's been created. So one thing you can do is just look up and down and horizontally to see if there are any candidates that blocks any of the cells, because if it blocks one cell like this 6, that means the other 2 cells can accept the pencil marking of that number. Or let's see, this is a 3, 6 and 7. Well, we haven't got that, but let's say 2 cells are blocked, then that means the number has to go into the remaining cell basically, but we haven't got that pattern. So but what we do have is we've created another pair for us. Now again, the logic is 3 and 6 are now locked in those 2 cells, so not only can no other numbers go in there, 3 and 6 can't go outside of these 2 digits as well. Sorry, these 2 cells either. So that means I've now only got 1 cell in play in this entire box, and it's a 7 because that's the only number remaining. And now let's look at how 7 interacts. Well, first of all, it comes across, giving me a 7 over here because there's only one cell left, and it continues to move across, giving me another 7 here because of this 7 blocking that column. And now these two 7 interact, but they leave me with 3 possibilities, so that's no use for me. So let's rewind back. What about this 7? Well, it knocks out that pencil marking, giving me another 7. And these two 7s now look down, they don't do anything. So let's rewind back, and let's rewind back to this 7. Well, this 7 also interacts with that 7, giving me another 7 here. And this is quite powerful because this 7 now interacts with these 7s, giving me another 2 pairs of 7s, and that's all the 7s pencil marked in. And let's rewind back to the 7, and I think we did a 3-6 pair there, but I was actually doing 2s. I was just looking at 2s on the board, and so by literally looking at the 2s, looking at these 2s and putting in a pair of pencil markings, I've suddenly unlocked a lot of the board basically. And this is the kind of power from Snyder notation on kind of relatively straightforward puzzles basically. It is more powerful, it is still powerful with like harder puzzles as well, but you kind of need to be quite experienced in spotting patterns, I think, and I'm not very good at that, so I'm not going to pretend that it's super useful for me. So what can I do now? Well, if I step back a little bit, I can continue on to look through 3 to 9, but now it's worth just like taking a break and see what has changed with the board. Have we got new weak areas? Well, we do. We've got a pair here, because this box has only got 2 cells remaining, and I know they have to be 3s and 4s. And why is that useful? Well, this 3-4 pair actually eliminates a 3 over here, and it gives me the 3 and 6 as resolved cells basically. So let's see what we can do with that. Well, this 3 comes over here interacting with this box, giving me another new 3, and it comes down interacting with this 3, locking those 2 cells, giving me another pair of 3s. So I've got a pointed pair of 3s here, so I'm going to look across, interact with that 3, giving me another 3 here. And that 3 now interacts with the pencil markings here, resolving the 4 and 3 because that can't be 3 anymore. And now I've got another interaction with these 2 3s with that one, giving me another 3. And now these 2 3s interact over here with that 3, giving me another pencil marking. So we've done a lot by just looking at the 3s. And if I start rewinding back, and that 3, there's nothing else I can do with that. Rewind to that 3, nothing else I can do. This 3, nothing else I can do. What about the 4? So the 4 looks down, but they don't interact with other 4s in meaningful ways, so that's no use for me. And I think that was the last 3, and if I rewind back, no, hang on, I was looking at the 4-3 pair, wasn't I? But it's kind of like created a loop. They allow me to resolve them by themselves, by the weak areas. And this is another scenario that's happened where I've lost my place. I've kind of forgotten where I was as I do the rewinding. That's okay. We can always revisit the board afterwards. All I need to remember is I've been working on the pencil markings for 3s and well, rather 2s, but now I've done all the 3s now, so I know I can move on and just look at the 4s around the board. So let's see. I can tell you now there are no new discoveries with the 4s, so let's move on to 5s and 5 5 5. No new discoveries. What about 6s? Okay, so these 2 6s interact with these 3 cells, and that gives me a 6. So this is a scenario where I was neither looking down nor across. I was kind of looking at 2 6s interacting. So you can move in either direction. If you choose to move down, you can see a 6 down here, and it also locks another 6 here because it now interacts with that 6. And now I can look across here, and I've got 3 possible places for 6. No use for me, so let's rewind, rewind, rewind. And now let's look across. Well, these 2 6s interact as well, locking a 6 down here. And that's useful because now that gives me another pair of 6s up there and a pair of 6s down here. And now all the 6s are pencil marked in, and then they're kind of like, I don't know, chain reaction that this 6 has caused are restricted within the 6s. So I know I haven't touched any other numbers, and it's safe for me to just move on and look at 7s. And if I'm not mistaken, I've already done all the pencil markings in for the 7s, so I can move on to the 8s. So have we got anything interesting happening with the 8s? I do not believe so, so no. So let's move on to 9s. 9s. So this 9 locks that cell, meaning 9 has to go there, and that means I've now got a single cell left, because I've created a 5-9 pair, there's only one cell in play, and it's a 4. So let's see, the 4 doesn't interact downwards very well, but it goes sideways and across, giving me another pair of 4s. There's nothing else to it, so what else can we do? Well, if we rewind back to the 9s, it also means I've got a pair of 9s over here, and that creates an 8-9 pair, which means I've only got 3 cells left in play, and they are a set of triples. I mean, I can pencil mark them in. I can see the 4s there. They are 4, 7 and 2s. Can't pencil mark in the 2s because I don't know where any of them goes. So let's leave it for now and go back to, where was I? I think I was looking at 9s, wasn't I? Yes, I was looking at 9s. So what else can I do with 9s? 9, well, nothing else actually. Those are all the 9s. So essentially I've gone through 1 to 9. I've made changes to the board again. I've not only pencil marked in things, but more importantly, I've actually filled in some of the digits. So that means the board has changed by nature. And so if I want to, I can go around the grid again with from just 1 to 9 and see if I can make any more discoveries. But instead, the board is now looking a bit more populated. So what I like to do is see if I can actually do any solves without just going around the grid, basically with all the numbers. So what jumps out is I've got a weak area here, weak area here, and weak area here. So these 3 cells are weak in all manners of interactions. Well, they're triple basically, and they are 2, 8, and 9 triple. But unfortunately, if I look up, down, across, there's no way I can resolve any of these digits. But nonetheless, those cells are now locked in as a triple. And I think the principle of Snyder notation is not to bombard yourself with numbers around the board with too many pencil mark notations. So when you're down to a triple, I think it is worth pencil marking them in, just to kind of like tell yourself this is the scenario. But long as I remember when I erase any pencil marking in, any pencil marks, that I don't immediately assume that if I erase a 2, then there's only 1 2 left, because I've actually got 2 left. 2 2s left on the board. Sorry, in the box. Kind of losing my chain of thoughts there. So what else can I do? Another thing that jumps out is this row here. I've got 3 cells left, and this is the kind of not tip, but kind of logic that I use, assuming that the pencil marking that I filled in are correct and I've not missed any erasures of pencil marking in. I've actually got 3 pencil markings in, 3 digits pencil marked in. I've got 4, 5, and 9, and I've got 3 cells as well. So 3 numbers and 3 cells. That means the 3 digits, the triple in here, has to be 4, 5, and 9. So what I like to do now is look up and down and see if I can spot more than 1 digit. And immediately I can see 5 and 9 are here. So that means this 4, 5, 9 triple, there's only 1 possibility left, and it's a 4. So now I can erase the other pencil marking 4. So since I've filled in the 4, it's worth me looking up and down to see if any other interactions. Well, 4s are now locked into those 2 cells, and that creates another pair of 4s and 5s, which means, messing up with the keyboard there, which means that has to be a 6 now, and that 6 erases the pencil marking down here, so it has to go in here. And by filling it in, I've erased another pencil mark, and these are still basic Snyder notation. So there's only 1 7 left, so there's only 1 3 left, there's only 1 2 left. So I just filled in all these cells by just 1 discovery. And that's the power of Snyder notation. Basically, it creates a lot of chain reactions. So this 2 looks over here, erases the pencil marking, and I think that's it. But if I look up here as well, there's a 3 8 pair, but there's only 1 cell left in this column. That means I haven't erased all the pencil markings in as I fill these in, and it's a 3. So that means the 3 is now locked in that cell, and the only possible candidate in this column is an 8. So 3 and 8 are filled in as well. And what else can I do? I've now left myself with a 5 9 pair, and that's kind of creates a little, I don't know what to call it, little shape with 4 sides, I guess, trapezium. Not very useful for me right now, but what I do know is they can't form a rectangle if there's only a single solution, because if they form a rectangle, then the 5s and 9 can be interchangeable in where they are. So it's safe to say that things are correct at the moment, but what it also means is when any one of these 5 and 9 resolves, then all 4, 5 and 9s will resolve themselves as well, and chances are to create other chain reactions as well, like resolving the 4 and 5 up here, because if one of these 5s are resolved, then these 4 and 5s have to be resolvable as well. So let's rewind a little bit. I think I just filled in an 8. So does that 8 interact any way? not directly, but indirectly, it does actually give me another pair of 8s over here. And this is where I want to talk about a pattern that I use in a lot of hard puzzles. I've got 8 locked into rows 7 and 8 in this box. And if I look across, oh, I lied. I thought I've only got 8 and 9 in those cells, but actually I've got an 8 down here as well, so ignore me. I'm sure we'll find that pattern eventually, but if you look at my hard puzzles, I have explained that logic a little bit, but let's not do that right now. What about the 2? Well, the 2, it looks over here, locking the 2's over here, and that's all the 2's pencil marked in. What about the 3? 3, well 3, if I look on the tools, the buttons, I can see it's already been solved, but also by just looking around the grid, I can see that it's all solved. 7, that 7 erases the pencil marking, meaning the only 7 left has to be correct, and that erases a 4, and that erases a 2, and that's the final 2. So that 2 looks across, eliminating another 2, so 2 now has to go in here. And that 2 looks up, erases another 2, meaning there has to be an 8 and 2. So that's a dead end, because if I look across, can't do anything in that. If I look down, nothing is happening. So let's rewind back to this 2. It doesn't do anything in itself, so let's rewind back to, I think it was a 2 over here. Doesn't do anything else, nothing else. But I think, but basically, yeah, using that, you can kind of like continue on and look for any logics. But I think we're now at a point where we can just completely step back and see if there are new patterns. And the reason I talk about that is because we can now solve this puzzle, because I've only got one blank cell left in the entire board, and there's no way that basically, not no way, I suppose there are possibilities that I can do pencil marking in, because I've not actually done all the pencil marking in these cells either. But I'm actually looking at a pair here. I've got 8 and 9 on this row, but if I look up, I can already see an 8 up there, which means 8 can't live in this cell at all. So I know this has to be a 9, and there has to be an 8. And suddenly, this 8-9 pair has been resolved, and that 9 pushes a 9 out, which gives me an 8 here, and that has to be a 9. That 8 also pushes that 8 out, which means there has to be 8 now, and that means this has to be a 4, and now the 4 looks up here, giving me a 5 and a 4, and this 5 looks back down, giving me a 9 here, and a 5 and a 9 and a 5, and that's the chain reaction that I was talking about. By just solving one cell over here, it creates a chain reaction that solves everything for you, basically, and that's generally how Sudokus work, especially towards the end anyway. But yeah, that's today's medium Sudoku from New York Times, quite an easy one. And tomorrow I'll be doing just a quick solve to kind of like with done narrations. So I'll see you then.